Alito, Chin Chukma. We want to welcome our viewers today in the United States and around the world to indigenous black Native Americans, yesterday, today, and forever. In this video, we want to talk about the history of black indigenous Native Americans. I know many of you saw the documentary Black Indians, and in that very good documentary, they talked about the experience of black people who were enslaved, who were taken in or ran away to Native communities. You did have some of that happening during that time period in the past when slavery was in effect in the United States. However, there is a portion of the history that was not shared in that video, and that inspired me to produce this video. What was not discussed in that video is the fact that there were indigenous black Native Americans here in the Americas prior to the European arrival and prior to the black slave trade from Africa. Alright? So, without further ado, let's get into this story. I want you to take a look at the first drawing. It is a picture of indigenous natives from the area of Virginia in 1585, and it was depicted by the English. Take a look at the native on the left. You'll definitely see the wide nose, the full lips, and you can compare his features to the native on the right. Let's take a look further to document how widespread black indigenous natives were and how they were mixed in with the other natives, all living together as one, in harmony, as one people. Let's take a look at a drawing of the natives that were discovered by explorers from Virginia to Florida in the year of 1671. Take a close look, particularly I would say more so at the natives in the Virginia area. You'll see the dark, rich skin. You'll see the afros. Then take a look within that community and take a look at the natives in Florida on that same drawing. And you will see natives of a lighter complexion with straight hair. You see a mixed look of natives all living together, right? Alright, let's jump forward to the Spanish mission explorers and the natives that they documented. Okay, you can see these dark black indigenous natives. This is what would later become the state of Florida, and this is in the early 1800s. You can take a look at the complexion, skin tones, and all of that. See that very clearly. Let's continue to move forward and look at the next drawing, still from the same era. You can see the beautiful dark skin. You can see the rockin' afros. You can see the feathers and all that, right? Okay, see, we're all living together, indigenous to the land. Take a look. This next picture is an actual photograph of a black Sioux. The year is unknown of this photograph. See him rocking his two braids. See both black and native features. It's a mixture of Americanized and native clothing. Okay. Let's take a look at our next picture. This is a black native from Kansas. The year of this picture is unknown. It's early 1900s. Let's take a look at this next picture. This is also the early 1900s. Okay. This is a Comanche Indian family. You can see the two mixed blood black children. You can see in the middle of the native woman on the left and the native chief, Comanche chief on the right, a mixed blood black female. And these are her children. Okay? So you can see the racial harmony. Everyone living together. What happened is the question that caused the indigenous black natives to be separated from their families and tribal communities here in what would later become, or at that time, the United States. What happened? Well, what happened with the 5 civilized tribes of the Southeast, which would be the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Cherokee, the Creek, and the Seminole, was the Dawes Commission. The Dawes Commission was enacted in 1893 through 1914, and what this did, this brought pressure from the government for Native people to give up their communal property, their communal lands, if you will, and to adopt even further the American principle of individual land ownership. Now, for these 5 tribes in particular, in an attempt to adopt white custom and to preserve themselves in the sight of the government, they adopted the practice of slavery within their nations. Did all nations practice this against their black members? No. But these particular 5 tribes did at that particular time. Alright? What happened when the commission came in to enumerate the people, count them, and get a census of how many people were native or whatever? They did a couple of things. One of the things was they forced or pressured people that were signing up, the natives that were signing up for the rolls, to only claim membership in one tribe. Many people were members of more than one tribe. Their mother may have been one tribe, father another, whatever, and they were forced to choose one tribe. That's one thing that happened. A second thing that happened was that their black members in their communities were not permitted, or their mixed blood blacks were not permitted to claim their Indian heritage. They had to take what was called status of freedmen, or that they were slave, even though they may have been a slave, but many of those freedmen were mixed blood Indians, black Native Americans. And by taking that status, or rather having it forced upon them, because the agent, by way of just a physical look, you were dark skinned, your hair wasn't straight, you're placed on freedman roll, so you're disenfranchised from your nation. Many of those black natives spoke only the language of their tribe. So many of them didn't even speak English, grew up, practicing custom tradition of their tribe or whatever, And we talked about another video about, how they were displaced, and, especially up in Oklahoma, they had to, create their own communities, so you had a lot of black towns spring up and all of this, all right? So what also happened is that after these community, tribal lands were broken up and dispersed into individual allotments, then came the great sale of Indian lands. Take a look at this picture right here. Indian land for sale. You had the great rush to the west. So you had all the people coming in from the east that wanted those lands, and the government was selling them. Alright? The fallout for this, and before I say that, let me say this. What was really, really terrible also about this commission was that it created such a division, in our people, because you also not only had mixed blood blacks in those nations, in those 5 tribes that were affected by the Dawes Roll, but you also had mixed blood whites. So you had full blood natives, you had mixed blood white natives, and you had mixed blood black natives. However, the mixed blood white natives were allowed to stay, or if a white man was married to a native, he was allowed to stay, and his children were allowed to stay. But black slaves of those nations, or black mixed blood natives, or their children, they were not for the most part, permitted to stay. And they had to take the status as freedmen or non-Indians. Okay? So the fallout of that, moving forward, you have, you know, a lot of frustration. I want you to think about how would it be if you were to hear that in your family there were natives and your grandmother was native and your, let's say for example, your great-grandfather or whatever, and you hear these stories, but you wonder what happened. Why weren't you told more? Why wasn't more information given? Why weren't you included, you know, in tribal practices and things like that? Let me tell you, there was a lot going on. Being from myself, a black and native mixture, and having it close on both sides, I got to hear a lot of stories. And also, I have friends who, you know, parents told them the same stories. You know, grandparents running away from their communities, running to the north, and how being, you know, for some mixed with black natives in the south, having to, you know, try to pass for all black. You know, I know people whose relatives, great parents, you know, grandparents and great aunts and things like that, told them stories of don't tell people that you're Indian when you go to the store. It was very hard for Native people during this time. Native people like blacks had no rights. You know, it may have been a little easy in some respects to be black, but it was very difficult to be a native person. This also happened, you know, for some white natives also, but the black natives really had a terrible experience, you know, particularly if you were out in, you know, just in general society. It was very difficult. So a lot of times what happened, people did not tell those stories. The language was not taught to children, was not spoken in the house, and that's why you have a lot of black natives whose family did not grow up on the res, you know, who don't know their language. It wasn't passed to protect, you know, the children. So now the frustration is we're in a, you know, an era now of it being a beautiful and acceptable thing, you know, for you to claim your native heritage, and then you don't have the tools or the information to really participate in your heritage. So that's why you have such a frustration, you know, a lot of times within black Indian people. I want to show you some pictures of some contemporary black natives today. And then I want to talk about a little bit of some things that you can do to help remember, you know, your heritage and where you came from. But before we go there, let's take a look at some of these pictures of some beautiful black natives. Take a look first at this beautiful black and native female. Alright. Also, take a look at this very handsome young black native male. He's at a powwow, he's in his regalia. Okay. Here is a picture of a black Apache. The next picture is of a black Mohawk. And you may remember this gentleman from the movie Black Indians. Alright, the next picture is of a dark-skinned black Chata from Mississippi, from the Mississippi band of Chata Indians. The next picture is of a black Unkichuk from Long Island, New York. Okay? I want to show you something next that's not real commonplace now. And these are mixed blood black natives living on a reservation. This will be the Lower Sioux Indian Reservation in Minnesota. Okay? So take a look closely at the pictures. You will see them participating on the basketball team and some classroom activities. And you see them there with other mixed blood white native children. This is more the exception in many cases than the rule, because many mixed blood black natives did not have the opportunity or the experience of growing up on the res to, continue to learn their native ancestry and culture. Okay, take a look at the basketball team. You can see a beautiful blending black and mixed blood natives right there. All right. So the question comes to mind: how is it, living in the city, growing up, for a lot of black natives, maybe just in black culture or what other communities that you may be mixed with that were, more contemporary, how do you remember your spirit? How do you reconnect? For some, the reality is that just may not happen in the way that you would like it. Some people, the family lines were so blurred and information so cryptic that specific information may not be made available. For some, you may try, I would say maybe some people may go the way of DNA. I don't know how advanced that is to tell the particular tribe or whatever. But what I want to offer to, the people out there, because not everyone is going to be fortunate enough to have, parents or grandparents from the res and stuff like that. I was fortunate enough, and I know others that were fortunate enough to have that experience or similar experience where they could get a lot of information, even if it, came to them later by discovering family members, But for a lot of black natives, again, that will not be the experience. What I want to offer to you is to go, and seek out information. One thing that you can do is, if you can find out from relatives, talking to your elders and your family, talk to everybody that you can in your family. Ask them what they remember about anything of Native history, where your people were from, as far back as the stories can be told. Go back and do research. Find out what Native communities were in that area. All that you can to research to find out more. And again, this may or may not yield specific information about your specific tribe or clan, because many of the tribes had different clans and things like that or whatever. But it may give you a general sense. But the thing about it, whether or not you ever get that specific information as to what tribe or which clan or whatever, that does not erase the blood. That does not erase the pride that you can have and hold in your heart as being a black native person. There are still different things that you can participate in to help enhance that. You can attend your local American Indian house or community center, and begin to just go and attend. And I would tell you a lot of ways. The best way to go in is to go in quiet, respectful, be there for a while. With Native people, I'm going to tell you, mostly we will observe you for a long time, so if you don't get a lot of feedback initially, or a lot of people don't talk to you a lot initially, or a lot of people kind of stand off initially, in many instances we kind of like to observe people for a while before we begin to open up. And I'll tell you why that is. Because there are so many people that have come in to try to take advantage and exploit Native culture that people are just slow to be open to outsiders. This is not necessarily the rule in every, Indian community or Indian house that you'll go to, but you'll see that more often than not. Take your time, get to know, volunteer, and just let the process happen. Begin to attend powwows if you all can. in your area. You know, you can go online, powwow.com, different things like that. Check at your Indian house for powwows that may be taking place. And just begin to, you know, take that pride. Listen to native music. There's so many different things that you can do. I mean, for myself, I've done a combination of all the things. And then additionally, as I said, I have family members that, you know, brought the information forward, and I was fortunate for that. So I've had a chance to take part in a lot of things with my heritage and culture, you know, especially by having the blood so close as that I do. But I definitely understand how many people out there can feel that maybe have not had that experience or may not have the opportunity to have first-hand information. But don't let that discourage you. Know this: we are who our ancestors were. You can listen to native music. There's so many different types. One of my favorite types is round dancing, you know, and things like that. And as you begin to go, you know, and there's different native communities, you know, depending on where you live, you can go online, you know, and find different ones, and just begin to go and be a part. And many of these communities are made of mixed blood natives like yourself. Many of the people, you know, in local Indian community organizations, not all of them, you know, have direct information, though they may be direct lineal descendants of different tribes. So you're not the only one. So don't feel isolated by that experience. Many people, you know, will not have specific tribal information, but it does not have to take away your pride as a native person, you know. One of the things that I do to enhance my spirit, outside of maybe real traditional, you know, social things, is I like to go to the water with my hand drum and sing, you know, powwowing and dancing and things like that, reading about our people. Our excellent book is 500 Nations, and just, you know, getting a hold of much information about native culture from valid sources as possible, and just absorbing yourself in that knowledge and information. It's such a blessing, you know. And don't let anyone tell you, just because you don't have specific information, that you're not native. A lot of people from a lot of different communities may not have, you know, full, complete information about who their great this was or whatever. However, if you know in your heart that that is a part of your heritage, embrace that, walk in that in a good way. So I wanted to just bring this information in this video to show how we were all here together, indigenous black natives in one community, how we got separated, you know, as it pertains to the 5 tribes, and how that kind of practice, you know, went around, you know, Indian country. But there is a great coming together once again, and it's a beautiful thing. So I hope this information has been helpful, and that you will definitely begin to explore of your native heritage and your people, you know, and finding out all that you can, and honoring it and cherishing it in a good way. And what I want to say for the future is that we have to pay that information forward. We have to continue to promote our heritage, to tell the stories. You know, I remember the stories of my grandmother, you know, telling me how her father, you know, stole her off the reds, if you will. He saw this beautiful Indian girl with long hair riding her horse, and he came and took her away one day, and they got married. That's how they kind of did it. And I've heard a lot of people tell those stories before, you know, which were true. Black man saw this young Indian girl that he liked, picked up and wifed her, you know. Just different things like that. But whatever stories that you have about your family, pay them for it. Pay those stories for it, to your children, to your family, to communities. Because the thing is, if we stop talking about it, and even though you may think that, well, I don't hold that big of a piece, maybe because I don't know any of my language, or I don't know which clan, I know the tribe, but maybe I don't know the clan, or maybe I don't know the tribe or whatever. If we stop talking about native culture, even, you know, for mixed blood people that did not grow up in our tribal communities, we lose that much of the culture, and eventually people will stop talking about us, stop remembering, and we have to tell our own stories. You know, to get to the point where people say, well, where are the Native Americans? We're still here. We're still here in all of our many different looks and beautiful forms. Alright? So, I'm going to close right now, but this video, the ancestors have been pressing me to produce this video for a while now, so I finally, you know, said yes on that, and here it is, alright? So, Chibin Salat Chiki, Doksha.